The global issue of my individual oral focuses on the violation of the second article of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights set by the UN in 1948. The article reads: Everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration, without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, age, political underopinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. This global issue is mostly associated with class division based on origin, fertility, and privileges. It investigates to which length these classifications hinder the individual from moving up the social ladder. While it is difficult to define class, it is generally accepted that class can be thought of as a person's place in the social hierarchy. Look at the three factors: wealth, status, and power. Throughout history, there have been three levels of classes: lower, middle, and upper, with the upper class mostly being the controlling minority. In the dystopian novel set in 1948 in Oceania, and notably Ashford 1, there are three distinct social classes that together make up a social pyramid. 85% of the population are proles, the lowest class. 12% outer party is the middle class, and 2 to 3% is the inner party, which would be considered the highest class. One of the violations of the second article that proles experience is severe class setting. Due to the social status that they were born into, there are certain rights and duties that are imposed on them. The proles have relatively high freedom compared to the other classes, but also low privileges. Their wealth is purposefully kept low, and their ignorance purposefully high, so that they do not realize how severely oppressed they are. Since this oppression is unknown to the proles, it creates a certain kind of alignment to and strength for the party. From there out comes quote, "Ignorance is strength." As said before, even though this oppression exists, the proles experience relatively high freedom. This is due to them not being members of the party, inner nor outer, who themselves experience varying levels of surveillance. This sets the proles as the lowest class in society with little wealth, status, or power. It's notable that these non-party members are not properly educated in relation to their party counterparts. The proles do not learn about the true past, as the government has changed it. They do not learn about governmental structures or learn to think critically. Because the proles do not learn to think critically, they do not realize the situation that they're in. Without the knowledge that they are oppressed, nothing will change. A quote from the book: if there was hope, it must lie in the proles, because only there, in those swarming disregarded masses, 85% of the population of Oceania could afford to destroy the party ever be generated. Another quote: until they become conscious, they will never rebel, and until after they have rebelled, this cannot become conscious. So their social origin causes them not to be conscious. This clearly indicates the importance of the education that they miss due to their low social class and the fixed setting of the class society. The proles need to be conscious to fix their current predicament, which has been set by the upper class, but the only way actually to receive this education is to rebel and change society. Their rebellion causing education is the only way their the only way that they would become conscious to cause a rebellion is to rebel. So it's impossible. Well, the proles are usually allowed to purchase books. These books may not be of any scientific importance, contain sensitive photos or any important names. This is also shown from Winston. He's not allowed to keep a photograph of important figures in the past, which he has to destroy using a memory hole. Winston is notably not a member of the proles, but it shows to which laws they have to abide. The gathering of information by proles, by purchasing important books, not simple ones, would be a major problem for the party, since the truth must stay true, and this can only be done when the possibility of alternation by the Ministry of Truth is possible. This ministry mostly employs out-the-party members, which were allowed to review these kinds of texts, but only when they were correcting them. It's similarly to the Ministry of Truth. The Ministry of Plenty is highly ironic. The ministry rations goods, supplies, and food mainly to the upper class, since which were born into this right. Clear notable privilege of the inner party is then the possession of certain goods. They are allowed to use high quality goods such as normal Cuban cigarettes, high quality alcohol, books, diaries, chocolate, and certain appliances. This privilege is purely given to the highest 2-3% as population, while Winston, as an out-of-party member, was not allowed to have these goods and appliances. He had to use Victory gin, Victory cigarettes, no chocolate, and notably did not have the option to turn off his TV, just merely based on his class and social origin. He belongs to the middle class, since he holds no real power, has a small status, and average wealth. Well, this is completely different from his so-believed friend O'Brien. O'Brien, as a party of the inner member, did have those privileges, and he did have a diary, and he did have a book, but he also had a lower level of surveillance put on him. He a lot of power, status, and is allowed to have privileges, something what translates into wealth in Oceania, since no real wealth exists. Only when truly necessary were his goods rationed. So, for example, when there was a chocolate shortage, then his rations had to be turned smaller, rationed more, because it simply wasn't enough. Chocolate features in a few places in the novel, during which Winston notes that their supplies are dwindling, and he seems to be the only one that sees this. Chocolate indicates a very clear example of the class setting, with some classes not being allowed to possess it. In Gilead, gender and the status of being fertile often intersects with class. This is clearly visible if you look at the similarities and differences between the handmaids, between the Marthas, and between other roles in society. For example, only young and fertile women are assigned to be handmaids, because their role in society is to reproduce. Their status of being a handmaid then determines certain aspects of their life. The class setting in The Handmaid's Tale is more focused on the specific traits of the individual than the class of a whole. And the correctness of those traits are determined by Gilead's ideals. So, in other words, the closer a person fits with the values that Gilead promotes, the higher their social status is. And major violations of the second article of human rights occur when looking at the power structure in Gilead. For example, while Serena Joy does entertain a lot of power, she has to adhere to her husband. So even though she has clearly made a decision, when her husband tells her to do otherwise, she has to listen to him, simply based on the fact that he is a commander and a young white male. With this elevated social class, there are some certain benefits, like food and luxury items, like we just seen in Oceania. When Offred first goes shopping, she gets certain instructions to get quality eggs and chicken, and that's when the still from The Handmaid's Tale comes into play. In this tale, it's being said that by a Martha to Offred that Offred has to get fresh eggs. And I quote, "Tell them fresh for the eggs," she says, "not like the other time. And a chicken, not a hen. Tell them who it's for and they won't mess around." This clearly shows that the ability of the commander's household staff to get quality product, and it shows that he has high respect and status. And even though the wives also have this status and authority over the staff, they do not have particular traits that allow them to be so. The young white wives merely depend on the status of the commander and also can get luxury goods. And they also can have a lot of power over the Marthas and the handmaids. Another social group in The Handmaid's Tale are the Eyes and the Guardians. They are part of Gilead's higher middle class. They do have some privileges, but by far do not rank as high as the commander do and the wives. When Offred first encounters Nick, she states that she sees him on top of the balcony when she has just had the ceremony and steps outside to relieve himself from the tension she gets from the cum of the commander still being inside her womb. She states that, and I quote, "He lives here, in the household, over the garage. Low status, he hasn't been issued a woman, not even one." From Offred saying this, we can learn a lot. We know that Nick is part of Commander Waterford's household, but he's very different from Offred. Since he lives above the garage, we know he has a private apartment, so from that we know that he's part of a higher middle class. But also, because he lives above the garage, it shows his role in society and subservientness to the commander. Furthermore, Offred states that Nick hasn't been issued a woman. It shows the objectification of women in society and the status symbol that a woman brings. Not even one is also very clearly read in it. From that we can know that women are seen as a wealth symbol, and of which you can hold more, and power is measured by the amount of women or servants in one's possession. Lower than the eyes are the ants. They stay on the middle class, but since they are older women, female, so lower, and are responsible for indoctrinating the handmaids. These women are solely assigned due to their above average age to give a certain kind of dominance over the younger handmaids. But due to their infertility, they can easily be disposed of when breaking the law. For example, the punishment for breaking the law is being sent off to the colonies, and what would happen then is clearly described in the first episode. Moira states, don't you know what they will do? They will send you off to the colonies. You'll be cleaning up toxic waste and your skin will peel off in sheets, and then you're gone. You'll die. This is clearly a bad punishment and shows the disposability of the Marthas and the ants. Lowest in the household are Marthas and handmaids. Marthas are ranked slightly higher than the handmaids, since they are skilled, but are likewise considered a status symbol. So possession of them would indicate a certain status. Handmaids are like the lowest of individuals in the household. They are lower, like a woman, but they do not come near the household. The handmaids are assigned the task to be a two-legged womb and birth healthy children for powerful families like Mr. and Mrs. Waterford. Aunt Lydia in episode 2 states that fertility is a gift directly from God. You girls will serve the leaders of the faithful, so that would be the commanders, and their barren wives. So, for example, Serena Joy. You will bear children for them. It shows the subservientness to the couple. Even though the handmaids are such high importance, they are subject to hard punishments and dehumanization. Only when achieving the status of being fertile by the ceremony, they are handled with great caution. Their role is the most important since they ensure the survival of Gilead society. But in the meantime, they are the most abused, with cattle prods, taking an eye out when I offend the others' horrible things. Their privileges are thus based on the fact that they are fertile and young and can bear children. Without this fertility, they would be sent off to the colonies or Jezebel, like Mara had. All the way at the bottom of Gilead society, there are the unwomen. These include fruitless women, gender traders, and some rebels. They, as stated before, work in toxic mines with waste. This is simply due to them not fitting in Gilead society and with its biblical rules. To conclude, well, Oceania and Gilead view age, color, status, and property as highly important, which wasn't allowed by the second article. And these determining factors are therefore major violations and an example of class setting.